fastest way to turn out chef quality meals, would you say? You can make it simple by creating a pan sauce. And you might think I'm kidding, but as you're about to hear on this show, we're going to tell you all about simple pan sauces that you can create that make all the difference in the meal that you're making. We're doing it here on the brand new Food Schmooze Party. And how do you get us? You get the podcast. This is now what this is, a podcast. And we're doing it ourselves. And we are at faithmiddleton.com. And you'll see all of our brand new shows. I'm with my very dear buddies. And they are, oh, you know what? I'm not even going to give you your special kudos until I thank. Let me get the paper. We have to thank.
Okay.
These two people. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The Hartford Courant came out and they did a big front page story on all of us here. So we wanted to thank Pam McLaughlin and the current photographer, Aaron Flom. So we thank both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. We
I've
were
heard
thrilled.
from so many friends about that article.
Yeah.
Family members.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's gone
They
around.
couldn't miss it.
No.
And it's on the heels of a Facebook advertising campaign that we started a few weeks ago. And it's like all the fans came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
You know? They
Carl,
had no idea.
You were great to start that. You were really great to start that.
I love seeing posts online that say I was listening to Faith when I was a kid in the backseat of the car, and now and now I'm going to listen to the podcast with my kids.
Right.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way, Faith.
Yeah, she's only 107 now.
No, 106. Come on.
She looks great for her age.
So I would go to events, that I would put on for when I was with public radio, and young guys in beautiful suits would come up to me and say, "Oh, my mother forced us to listen," and so we had to listen. And he said, "Now here I am at your event, and now I'm a listener too." And I would think, "Is this a compliment?" I think it's a compliment.
We were tortured.
I get the same thing with the band. Oh, my dad loves Steely Dan. Great. That's great. Yeah, you tell your dad to come see us.
Yeah, right?
All right.
Oh, man.
Thank you very
I know.
much.
Well, Mark, how long have you been in the wine business?
27 years.
27
Not
years.
including the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not including that. Okay.
Not including the restaurant business.
Okay. And Joanne, I have to ask you this since I seem to be doing these little sweet interviews with you. So Joanne, how long were you in the military? Was it,
It was 4 years.
4 years. Okay. And that was Air Force?
Air Force in the 70s when women couldn't fly.
Oh,
But we aimed high.
Nice.
That's right. You're flying now, girl. You're flying now.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything about that. That just happened. Okay. So anyway, we thank our Hartford Courant buddies for doing that huge front page feature. I mean, really, thank you so much. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, this pan sauce thing. His feelings are going to be hurt, Bon Bon. Our mascot, my dog, is here, and he's in his bed at my feet, but he also was on page 2 of our feature in the Courant, walking down the street. He was walking down the street, but it was just the most adorable thing. So, okay.
That was a great picture.
Here are my Food Schmooze, thank you. Here are my Food Schmooze buddies. We got Chris Prosperi of Metro Beast Restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut. We have Joanne Church in New London. We have Carl Franklin, who's also our editor, and he is in Quaker Hill, Connecticut. And we have Mark Raymond, who is our wine guy, and he is in Old Wethersfield. Okay. Now, if you are thinking right now, I shouldn't even listen to this. I can't make a pan sauce.
Right.
Wait until we tell you how simple this is, right? Okay.
Yes.
Chris, why don't we start with you?
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm going to start. And since we're in warmer weather, I'm going with rosé wine. Right? And it's funny because we don't cook with a lot of it for some reason, but this summer I've been doing a lot of cooking, a lot of sauces with rosé. And
I think it adds a depth, Chris. I like it
it's not as heavy as red wine cooking when you reduce it, so it's a little lighter, but it has the punch of a red wine with flavor. And just like rosé, when you're drinking it, it goes with everything. So it's something you can do a steak sauce with or even a fish sauce with. So it's very versatile. And I was telling the guys earlier that I make something to start. I mix it with vinegar. So 2 parts wine, 1 part cider vinegar. And I boil the wine just to get the alcohol off it. And then I store this. And this is what we use for making either pan sauces or even like poaching chicken in.
Can you explain how you make, tell me exactly how you make this sauce.
Just take the wine, put it in a pot, bring it up to a simmer, turn it off, dump vinegar in it. So 2 parts wine, 1 part vinegar. You just want to, again, I just do it to cook, make sure I got if we use it in a cold preparation, that the alcohol's cooked off.
Yeah.
Chris, what does the vinegar do? Does it just add acidity?
Adds
brightness?
a great amount of acidity, and that really comes through when you are cooking. Right? It really does come through in the sauces, that flavor, that acidity. So a couple things I do with it. One right now, mussels. Oh my gosh, it's summer. So you get mussels.
Okay, how do you do that?
Chop up a shallot, hit it with a little olive oil, throw it in a big pot, right? Get that nice and going. And then I hit it with just a little bit of red pepper flakes, some garlic, and then I throw this
juice,
rosé and vinegar mixture in it. Then I dump, a couple pounds of washed mussels in it, throw the lid on, let them steam. Then I pull all my mussels out, throw them in a bowl that I keep warm, and then I take the liquid that's in the bottom of that pot.
The liquor.
Yeah, and I strain that. And now we're talking pan sauces, right? So even with mussels, you can do it. So I strain that off, just get any sand that was in the mussels and stuff. I get the shallot and the garlic out. So I'm just left with this liquid. I put it on the stove and I just bring it up to a simmer and swirl in some butter, some cold butter. And then I pour that over my mussels. And oh my gosh. Sometimes you just push the mussels aside and take your bread and just dip it in that, right? Because it has the juice from the mussels now incorporated. And for visual, like with white wine, it's just clear, but with this, it has that pink hue to it. So it's just, again, we eat with our eyes too, and it's beautiful. So again, something you can use with so many different things, but mussels is where I'm going today.
Oh, wonderful.
That is really great.
Love mussels.
Okay, I do too. Now, just let me ask this question, because I think a lot of people have this if they haven't done mussels very often, or they only get them in a restaurant. What is the sign to you that the mussels are done?
Yeah, they're open. And when you have to be careful though, because they'll close up if they're still good. So what I do is I just squeeze them open and closed, and you'll see if they're still alive and they're still good. They'll actually start closing very slowly. Yeah. And that's when you know they're still good. So it's not just that they're open is when they're done or bad. You want to make sure they're not just opening up, so you just give them, or you can just rattle them around and you'll see they'll start closing if they're still good.
Blow a whistle on their face. No, another thing you got to be sure of is that before you put them in the pot to cook them, that they're not open. Because if they're open before you cook them, they're dead. You don't want them.
Yeah. That's why I usually either rattle them really hard in the bowl that they're in, or I just squeeze them open down. Yep.
And the other thing too is if you've cooked a couple that are, dead, one, they won't open, or two, they've kind of opened, but they're not round and the fish isn't held together. Yes. So it's like kind of spread out, like spread eagle.
And those you just chuck.
Those you just chuck out. Right. Those are just no good.
3, you're on your way to the hospital, so it doesn't matter anyway.
if you did eat one. Yeah. So, Chris, on that same recipe, one of the things that we had while speaking of mussels was in Sicily. My wife's family, my wife's cousin, made mussels pasta. So she took that same sauce that you had, cut a couple cherry tomatoes into before, and then threw in a little bit of parsley, and then took the mussels off, covered, let them stand for a little bit. Meanwhile, cooked the pasta. And she made fregola, the round little balls.
The pasta.
And made a pot of that, and then once she just dumped it in there and used that to reheat it all up again.
Yeah, soaks up.
And just toss it. Oh, my God. It was
Were you
incredible.
fainting during this?
Yeah.
I was standing over the pot watching her do every move.
Mussels are so underrated, too. I just love them. Even
so flavorful.
Like, I was in my supermarket the other night, and I saw them, and they were gorgeous, and they were, I don't know, a couple bucks a pound they were selling them for. It was cheap.
Oh, they're so inexpensive.
They're so
it.
inexpensive
Absolutely
compared to
love it.
like clams or oysters. And man, they have such amazing flavor and so easy to cook, right? You just basically put them in a pot and simmer them steam them until they open and you're done.
And if you've got any leftovers, you take them out of the shell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put them in a bowl, keep them aside with maybe a little bit of that leftover sauce, right?
Use them the next day in a pasta or whatever.
On a pasta, you could use them, make a bruschetta out of them later.
So
so many different options.
Joanne Church, tell us what you're thinking about in terms of making a simple pan sauce.
Oh, I just want to say, love the wine you're with.
Nice.
Carl could do a little riff for that. I use wine while cooking mostly for deglazing, but since it's summertime, I'm going to share a Pinot Noir barbecue sauce recipe.
Oh, wow.
It can be made with any fruity red wine like Pinot or Zinfandel, or maybe a rosé like Chris mentioned. The sauce starts similar to many barbecue sauces. You start by sautéing in a little olive oil, 2 diced shallots, and 2 to 5 diced garlic cloves. I love heavy garlic in my barbecue sauce. So you slowly sauté that for 5 minutes over a medium heat, and allows the flavors to absorb into the liquids that'll be added later. Also, it fills your kitchen with a great garlic aroma, which I totally love.
Is there anything better? No,
I know. Then you add the spices, 2 tablespoons chili, half a teaspoon dry mustard, and a 1/4 teaspoon cayenne. Also, if you like cumin, you could put that in. Then you pour in 1 cup of the red wine and reduce it slightly, and then add in 1 cup of ketchup and simmer it.
Ooh.
And the only time I ever use liquid smoke is with barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
And just a very, maybe an eighth or maybe a drop. But
start with a drop.
A little goes a long way. But it's delish.
Yeah.
Did you say Worcestershire is in that too?
It can be. Mm-hmm. It's not in this particular, but I've done it. Also, coconut aminos or soy sauce. Sure. You just go. It's barbecue sauce. You just go crazy.
Go crazy.
That sounds good. Really
I like
good.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and hear what Carl Franklin has going on. I'll give you a quick thing that I have going on, and then we'll see if Bon Bon has anything to say. Okay, so we'll be right back. You are listening to the new Floochmoose podcast, and we're really thrilled to have you joining us, and we're thrilled to be together. So we have Carl Franklin coming up with Joanne Church, Mark Raymond, Chris Prosperi. I'm Faith Middleton. Okay, Carl Franklin, what do you have?
All right, so a couple of tips about pan sauces. First of all, I love pan sauces. I never make any meat in the kitchen without deglazing the pan and make a sauce. But a couple things is I don't use cast iron if I'm putting wine or lemon juice or tomato juice. Chris is agreeing with me because it does, even if you have a well-seasoned cast iron pan, it will, the acid will rust it and it'll be nasty. So stainless steel, or you know what? Kelly keeps threatening to buy me a set of Hexclad pans.
Oh, yeah. I've seen
Are those
them
as
online.
good as they say
I've
they
never
are?
used one.
I like
but
them.
I've seen them.
You have them?
I like them. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that'd be perfect for this. But a stainless steel pan, you can whatever you're sautéing in meat in. If it's chicken, if it's lamb chops, pork chops, beef, hamburgers, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be some fond left in the bottom of the pan.
Can you explain what that is?
That's the stuff that's left over, right? It's usually like a burnt, the burnt charred bits.
Yum.
Yeah.
When we
stuff.
make wings in the oven, You know, you get the crispy wafers of olive oil and garlic and cheese
the sheet pan,
protein or whatever. So here's my tip. So if you want to add veggies to your pan sauce, like, small diced onions, shallots, mushrooms, anything like that, you want to do that first. So some olive oil, even you take your meat out, let it rest. You do that first because you want that to happen before you actually add some liquid. If you're going to add liquid, if you already have liquid, great, good for you. But if you don't, you can add some stock or whatever. And I deglaze the pan with wine first. So you got your fond, you got your veggies optionally, then you deglaze with wine. And I'm talking about, a half a cup in a pan, maybe three-quarters of a cup.
When you say deglaze, just for people who don't have, any experience cooking, when you say deglaze, what do you mean?
Sure. So you're going to turn up the heat and you're going to let the liquid sort of take all those fond bits off of the bottom of the pan. So that's what you're doing. You're really cleaning the pan with wine.
Yes, that's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clean the pan with wine.
Yeah, you use a whisk or a spatula to get all that stuff.
Yep.
Spoon, yep.
But that all that goodness that's in the pan just kind of merges with that wine.
It's caramelized. Yeah,
an amazing sauce
It's
by itself.
where the flavor is, right?
Now you add, and here's the key, cold unsalted butter. Because you've already got salt because you've seasoned your meat, right? I mean, if you haven't seasoned your meat, we have another thing to talk about.
Wow.
So it should already be salty.
Way overboard with that.
Yeah,
right?
you can.
Okay.
So cold butter, whisk it in. It's called beurre monté or mounting butter because when you have the hot liquid and you take cold butter and you whisk it really fast, you froth it up and it really thickens the sauce.
Off the heat.
Off the heat, And so then you can add things. Like if you want to add seasoning, if you want to add more salted taste, I like white pepper. I like tomato paste. I like garlic. Those kinds of things you can add at the end to flavor it if you want to. And then when I serve the pan sauce, and I don't pour it over meat, because first of all, if you have especially if you have a nice crispy piece of meat, you don't want to douse it in sauce, right? You show it off. If it looks nice and brown, show it off. You can go around the plate like Chris probably does at Metro Beast when he serves a really elegant piece of meat.
Yeah, sliced.
Sliced. Or what I get is I get these little porcelain creamers. And guys, I left you a
I
link
saw that
in the chat.
I was like, I want those.
Yeah, these little 3-ounce mini porcelain creamers. It's like a little cup with a lip on it that you can pour out. And I
Everyone
individually serve those. Yeah, everybody gets their own personal pan sauce.
Idea.
So cool.
Yeah.
Great idea. The amount of sauce you want.
Because some people don't like lots of sauce, right? Some people like to bathe it in sauce.
Yeah.
You get to do it yourself.
Those are my friends.
Bathe in the sauce.
Okay, I'll do this quickly because it's so simple. I love to make duck breast on the stovetop in a saute pan.
Ooh.
And first, so all I do is, I score the duck breast and I cross hatch thing, so you go one direction then the other. And you go through the skin and you try not to cut the meat, but that's okay if you do. And then I put just a little faint bit of oil in the pan so that, the fat coming off the duck breast is going to be pretty intense. And so you sort of don't need it, but it makes me feel better. So I just put a little teeny bit of oil in the pan. And then I put my duck breast skin side down and I let it stay in there for about 15 minutes or sometimes 10 minutes.
On a low heat.
Yep. I keep peeking to see, is it starting to turn this sort of golden color? And when it does, I flip it over. And what's happening is that the fat that is in duck naturally is coming off the duck breast. And, in quite a bit. So I pause for a second and I turn the stove off and I pour that fat into a container and I stick the container in the freezer because I'm going to use that to make potatoes later.
Oh, yeah.
I'm done there.
Yeah.
I'll be right over.
This is why I'm in Weight Watchers. It's like, so, no, I'm not in Weight Watchers. By the way, people are going to go, oh, she's in Weight Watchers.
She is? When did she join? I didn't see that.
Yeah, because in the Harper Current.
Yeah.
No.
I watch my weight in the mirror every morning when I get out of the shower. My duck breast is going to go into the oven just to cook the extra 10 minutes, so it finishes cooking all the way through. And, you've done that hard cooking on the outside and, that's fine. And sometimes what I do is I take it out of the oven when it's completely done and I put it back in the pan and I throw in a couple of tablespoons of butter and,
I know. It's butter.
Like me. Keep going.
He's so fussy. Anyway, and then, I start swirling the pan around and then I say to myself, this could use a little, besides the butter, it could use a little Pinot Noir, which is a really good wine with duck. And so I just pour, a quarter cup, half a cup, and I let that cook down just a little bit. So the outside of the duck is crispy. I've got the taste of the butter and the wine together.
Nothing better.
And then I put it on the duck breast on the plates, and then I just pour I don't let anybody choose. I just tell them what they're going to do. I pour the juice all over the duck, and then I just serve it to people. I mean, it's really simple. I hope it didn't sound too complicated.
No, it's classic Beurre Blanc, right?
No,
I want white wine butter.
Yeah,
I want to know when we're getting invited for duck.
Red wine,
right?
No.
And by the way, if you're not interested in using wine, and wine cooks off, the alcohol cooks off, but if you're
100%.
not interested, you're making a pan sauce, lemon juice or vinegar.
Yeah. Or vinegar,
Right.
like Chris does.
Or what Chris is using.
Yeah, that mixture of vinegar and wine, or anything if you're just deglazing, any liquid, even water or broth or whatever, will get that stuff off. The cool thing about wine is it does add that acidity, and then any flavor the wine has sort of comes through in that,
Right.
And, especially when you're making, I'm not a big guy about using fancy wines in my cooking, but if I'm doing a small pan sauce and I know I have a lot of the wine I'm going to be serving with like a steak or a chicken, I'll put a little shot in there.
Right.
Yeah,
and that
sure.
just brings, when people are tasting the wine with the food, they're always like, wow, this goes so well together because you have the wine in the food that they're drinking. And again, it doesn't have to be it's like everyone said, it's not 2 cups. It's like a half or a quarter cup of wine. So you're not wasting it.
When I was researching this morning different things, a wine and food column said, be sure to use your decent wine for your pan sauce because you will be able to taste it.
Something
so I've known all my life if you're drinking it, all my life I've known people who don't care. They use absolutely anything. So I think it's just a question of taste.
Yeah, and what you're looking for too. Like, I use a very inexpensive New York State wine in some of my sauces because it's so high in acidity. And in some sauces, I want a really punch of acid flavor. So then using it, depending on what you're looking for, some of the really inexpensive wines are sweet. So if you're looking for, so you have to always think about what you're adding the wine for.
Right.
What's the purpose in this sauce? A lot of times it is acidity because, you're going to swirl butter in there, and acid and butter are great. They're juxtaposed.
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so again, you have to think, so it's not always about cheap versus good wine, drinking or not drinking wine. It like if you want just a punch of acid, there's some really cheap wines that when you taste, you almost spit it out because all you get is acid.
But you know what? I don't think you want to even worry about this too much.
Yes.
Because if you make a little slight mistake and you think, oh, that's a little sweeter, that's a little, okay, next time do it differently. Yeah. Mark, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say I like using, really good wine while I'm cooking, but I'm usually drinking it. But that was just kind of a little tongue-in-cheek. But I think one of the most interesting facts that I have for the wine business in the wine industry is we import a wine from Chile that comes in a 1.5. It's pretty inexpensive. Yep. And there are more Michelin star restaurants in Manhattan using this wine, and I'm not going to name the brand. Yeah, I'm not going to name the restaurants, but there are more Michelin star restaurants using these wines in Manhattan for cooking than we actually sell
for drinking.
For drinking.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty interesting.
I got to share this. We posted on Facebook. We asked for suggestions and comments before we did this. And Andrea says, please share the tip of buying small boxed wine products at the package store to keep on hand. And I say, no, we won't share that tip. So sorry.
Yeah. Box wines have moved up, right? You
can get
some great quality box wines.
Yeah,
they're so handy, right? Yep. I mean, you keep them in the fridge.
I love having wine in my fridge.
You want to sift off a little to cook with or to drink with. It's
I just
cool.
remember growing up, my mom's cooking wine was always, if they didn't finish something or someone brought something that they didn't love, my mom had like a jug under the sink. And that it just got, and my mom said it was funny because she said it the other day. The good thing about when people give you wine as a gift, right? Even if it's something you won't drink, you can always cook with it. It's true because it still might be a good wine.
Right.
But it's not just a wine for your taste, right? It's not something that you enjoy drinking. You can always put it in a stew.
Can you pass on a message to her for me and tell her the first thing I'm going to do when I go into her house is go look under her sink?
Oh, totally.
And see if anything that I have given you or her.
You won't know because it's a big like 1.5. She funnels it in there, so you won't know.
An empty vinegar jar.
Yeah, it's a big jug under there that she uses for cooking, and it's been in there since I was a kid. Yeah.
Somebody else, Maureen, suggested wine in mignonette sauces for oysters.
Yes, rosé, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep, a little splash.
Absolutely.
And you can do that with the alcohol or without. You can cook off the alcohol if you don't want, but if you like that little zing of the alcohol, you can leave that in and mix it in the mignonette.
And how about wine braised short ribs? That was another suggestion.
That's one of my favorite things.
Right.
You know what the secret to my short rib is?
What?
No.
Do tell.
It's 2-to-1. I usually use an Italian like a Barolo, right?
You use a Barolo for beef ribs?
Cheaper one. Yeah, cheaper one.
Oh, cheaper Barolo. Okay.
There's not many cheaper Barolos,
but there's a few. But mix that and you got to believe this is true with Coca-Cola.
Well, because that breaks down the meat.
Is that Southern? Is that
what? Jewish? I learned that from a dear friend, Lee White.
You're right.
Yes. And she said, in the South, it's Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And I've never tried it with Dr. Pepper. I do want to do that once, but I don't have Dr. Pepper on hand here at the restaurant. So one day I'm going to make it at home, and I'm going to make it with Dr. Pepper.
Wow.
I had it once out on Cape Cod where it was done with root beer.
Yeah, same thing.
No.
It helps break down the meat, adds sweetness, adds all kinds of flavors.
It was delicious.
It was delicious.
No.
I was at Lee White's house once when she made this, and she did it in a pan with foil, and she put the brisket in there or short ribs, whatever you want, any kind of meat. And when it came out of the oven, Jacques Pepin was there, and he took that and made a pan sauce out of it. Was the best pan sauce I've ever had to date.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, because it was if she did Dr. Pepper and red wine, and he poured that off, defatted it, and then swirled down. I can't remember what he did, but he put it on the stove in a little pot and swirled some butter in it and some other things, and it was amazing sauce.
Oh, that's right.
And I've been doing that. And you know what? And we get more compliments on our short ribs than any other dish we've ever done. And sometimes I don't even. And sometimes I feel bad to tell people, well, it's the Coca-Cola.
Yeah, right.
And we do use the real Coke, right? Well, it used to be called Mexican Coca-Cola, but now they have it here. Yeah, it's the one with you can buy Coca-Cola now with real sugar cane, not high fructose corn sugar, because that gets really weird when you cook it. So yes, try to get Coca-Cola with for your wine braised short ribs.
Before we go, guys, do you remember I talked about this palmini rice that I was going to try to make a risotto ball with?
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work out too well, but what I did find was konjac rice, and I have used this stuff before. Miracle Rice is one brand. And the glucomannan powder does it. So if you mix it with butter or ghee, in my case, and a little glucomannan powder, just like a sprinkle, and then bring that up to a boil, it thickens it, and then when you let it cool, it congeals like regular rice.
Oh, nice.
So you can make the risotto balls or anything. I haven't made risotto balls, but I made rice, and it's good.
It's good.
Wow.
Rice, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I made faux rice.
Faux rice.
Yeah,
very cool.
Oh, I hate to go. I hate to go. This is really so much fun. So you're listening to the new Food Schmooze podcast. We are back, and just thrilled to be together, and especially together with you. So,
and if you want to follow Faith on Facebook, go to facebook.faithmiddleton.com.
Awesome.
Okay, and follow these folks too. Don't be giving me just the attention. And Bonbon, follow Bonbon for sure.
Bonbon needs his own account.
Wouldn't
that be so fun? Maybe we'll do that. Okay. I was going to do, well, I won't tell you because maybe we'll still do this. Okay, a secret. That's a secret for sure. Great to have you with us, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Hey.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Waiting for the summer to come.